Okay, so thank you everyone for sending me in some of your homework. Some really good answers there. I'd like to talk about that though. I'd like you to explain what you know, what you chose. Pumpkin, what layer of rainforest did you talk about?
I talk about forest floor.
Oh, cool. Tell me something about the forest floor.
It is the layer that have a little bit of sunlight and have a lot of animals of rainforest live in it.
Yeah, cool. Good job. There's not much sunlight down there. Well done. Good job. Hacker, what layer of rainforest did you talk about?
Canopy.
The canopy. What can you remember about the canopy?
It have the most of the animals live in there.
Okay, as most animals live in there, good stuff. Billy, Oh.
I choose the canopy.
Okay, what about the canopy? What's so special?
The most, a lot of animals live in this layer, including monkeys and chimpanzees.
Oh, good job. Thank you very much, Billy. Trixie, where are you? Trixie, really, really good homework, by the way. I'm not going to ask you because you did like a lot of work for it. I can see you did your research. Just wanted to say well done and thank you. Really good job. What's the highest layer in a rainforest called? Noob. Emergent, yes, good stuff. What is below the canopy layer, Lucy?
The understory layer.
Yes, good job. The understory layer. What types of plants grow in the understory layer? Okay, Winter.
Bushes.
Bushes, yeah, bushes and shrubs and vines. Okay, and what is the forest floor mostly made out of, Joey?
Forest floor was made of short trees and some kind of bushes.
Yeah, some types of bushes, short trees. You also get lots of dead leaves, right? If you have so much leaves in the canopy layer, you're gonna have a lot of dead leaves on the forest floor, right? Again, thank you all very much for doing your homework. As you can see, I've got everyone's homework in here. Pretty good stuff. Hacker, next time, please write more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words for your homework. Okay, let's get to at least 20. That would be nice. Okay. So what we're going to start doing is going to talk about ocean life. So first things first is, you can tell me how many oceans there are in the world. Winter.
5 oceans.
5 oceans. Oh, very good. Okay. There are 5 oceans in the world. What are the names of the oceans? Pumpkin, what's one?
Arctic Ocean.
The Arctic Ocean, good stuff. Winter, what's another one?
Pacific Ocean.
Pacific Ocean, yes, good stuff. What's another one? Hey, Trixie?
Atlantic Ocean.
Atlantic Ocean, yes, that's a good one. Indian Ocean, and there's one more left. Joey, do you know the last one?
Pacific Ocean.
We got the Pacific, there's one more. It's called the Southern Ocean, okay? So let's have a look at them. So here's the 5 oceans of the world, okay? Now you've got the Arctic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific, the Southern Ocean, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. The interesting thing about all of these places is that, so what you actually get is, you have places like here, okay, and here. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is the Northern Sea. And then here you have like the Gulf of Oman. Here you got like the Gulf of India, you have the Gulf of Thailand, you got the South China Seas, you've also got around here the Great Southwest Sea. You have all these seas, Caribbean Sea, they're all part of oceans, okay? So if I was to ask you about naming, if you were to name oceans, you also need to take into account you've got these lots of seas around the place, okay? Now, one thing about them is they're all slightly different in some way. They're all oceans. They all differ in some slight, small, tiny ways. So What are the abiotic factors of oceans? What are the non-living things that affect an ocean? For everyone, yeah, pumpkin, go.
Water.
Yeah, the water, right? The amount of water, whether it's fresh water, salt water, all these things affect an ocean, right? What's something else that can affect an ocean? Pumpkin again.
Hi.
Sunlight, yeah, most definitely. The amount of sunlight definitely affects an ocean. I'm going to show you a video of one of what's called nature's great events. And the only reason this happens is because of sunlight. You're going to see lots of living animals, but the point is that none of these animals will be there unless there was sunlight. What's another thing? Joey, what's something else? So we got water, we got sunlight. What's something else that can affect an ocean?
The sand.
Sand? Yeah, sand.
Help the animals hiding.
Yeah, 100%. Sand can definitely help animals hide. What you have with oceans is you have how deep they are. Okay, we spoke about soil and we spoke about land for rainforest, but it's also the same for oceans as well. How deep they are. The deepest place in the world is called the Mariana Trench. Okay, it goes very, very far down. When you start going closer to the Earth's surface, pressure increases. Okay. Yes, Pumpkin.
I think another biotic that if the ocean is the temperature.
Yes, most definitely. I'm going to talk about that a lot. Good job, Pumpkin. Well done. Temperature is a huge one. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a lot of detail, especially about coral reefs. But what I want you to know is that you have things like the amount of sunlight, temperature, amount of wind and water in an area. There's water currents, the soil type, and the depth. All of these things play a role in an ecosystem. It's quite similar to a rainforest, right? You've got sunlight, which can affect what grows there. How hot it is affect what grows there. If it's too windy, it's going to affect it. If there's not enough water, water currents. Who knows the name of any water currents? Anyone ever watched Finding Nemo?
Me.
Yeah.
Me.
Oh, in Finding Nemo.
The Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Great Barrier Reef, but in Finding Nemo, right? So Marlin's there, he's there with Dory, and he talks to the fish, and he's like, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to help me find the East Australian current. You remember this? And he gets in that current, and then he meets the turtle, and he goes all the way to Sydney, and he finds Nemo. Happy days, great film, what a movie. But what he's looking for is something called the East Australian current. If you were to think about it in terms of like a wind, right? Underneath the ocean, there's all these little winds of water going around the whole earth. They bring warm water from one place to another. Because they're different temperatures, they actually move faster. So there's another abiotic thing which makes oceans completely different. In Europe, where I'm from, we have something called Gulf Stream, okay? If the Gulf Stream stopped bringing warm water from Mexico, the north of the world, it would be very, very cold. You should all watch a film called The Day After Tomorrow. In The Day After Tomorrow, they talk about what would happen if ocean currents stopped working. Basically, an ice age, the whole world would freeze over without these warm water currents moving around the earth. So, okay, how deep something is. I have another video for you about bioluminescence, which I can show you. Basically, animals that live in really, really deep places in the ocean. There's no sunlight at all. It's completely dark. And the only way they can see is by making things glow in the dark. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm going to show you this video. This is just to show you how much life can live in oceans, especially in one point, right? Oceans are huge. They're massive. 70% of the world is covered in oceans. But at some times you get so many animals in one place that you get what's called nature's great events. I'm going to show you this. I want you to see the amount of animals that we get in the one place. That is one of what we call nature's great events. So the whole reason that happens is because of sunlight. Sunlight creates plankton. Plankton are like tiny, 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 tiny little animals. They grow when there's a lot of sunlight. When there's a lot of sunlight, they grow. When they grow, a lot of fish eat the plankton, which means that there's lots of fish. Those fish and go on to feed dolphins and sharks and birds. What you didn't see there is at the end, there's whales that come up and they swallow about 10,000 fish at a time. All of these animals gather in one place at one time of the year for this to happen. It's awesome. I've never seen it. I really want to see it. I'd love to be able to see that. It's really cool. It's just an interesting fact how about sunlight can make something like this happen, and particularly in the ocean. Now, what I want to do is I want to keep going. I'm going to talk about coral reefs, okay? Coral reef is an area in which coral has grown on top of rocks, okay? It creates an underwater ecosystem. Coral, they're kind of like plants, right? Even look at this picture here. It's a little video of the coral growing. They look like little plants, right? Little plants underneath the water, but this is one entire animal. It's all alive, okay? But like plants, they can make food from the sun. So if you were to think about these great areas where coral grow, okay? What do you think are the abiotic factors needed for coral to grow? If it makes food like plants, what does it need? Pro, what do plants need to make food?
They make food from the sun.
Yeah, so coral reefs need sunlight. They need to be able to make food from the sun. So they need to be in places where there's lots of sunlight. They also need to be in places that are warm as well. Okay, so there's two things that makes coral reef exist. They need to be in places like where it's sunny, and they need to be somewhere where it's warm as well. Now, it's also not very deep there. Why do you think not very deep? Why do you think coral needs to grow somewhere that isn't very deep? Lucy?
Because they need a lot of sunlight to grow.
Yeah, exactly, good stuff.
And if the deeper the ocean is, the less sunlight is there.
Exactly, there's going to be less sunlight. So they need to be in places which are called shallow. Now, there have been corals found really deep down. What these corals do is instead of using oxygen, they use volcanoes. They actually make food from volcanoes. If you were, when you get older and you see how you actually make sugar from sunlight, you see that instead of oxygen, you just transfer it to sulfur. Pretty cool. It's also one, I'm not going to go into it, but there's a bacteria that lives on the side of volcanoes that we use to clone people. Pretty cool. So you get lots and lots of plant and animal life here. Same with rainforests, right? Think about a rainforest. Think about a canopy layer in a rainforest. We said that 70 to 90% of all rainforest life lives there, and 50% of all life in the world lives in rainforests. So that means that if you have 60 to 90% of all life living in the canopy layer and 50% of all animal life living in rainforest, that means that 40 to 45% of all animals live in a canopy layer. Because there's so many trees, there's so much food. Same with coral reefs. Look at all these plants growing like that. And because of that, there's so much food there. There's so much space for fish to live. So coral reefs, they are built by what's called a coral polyp. So these here, they're called polyp, okay? There's many different types. I read like there's 25,000 different types of coral polyp, and they all look very different. 25% of the world's fish depend on coral reefs for their home and their food. Animals and biodiversity found here is only rivaled by rainforests on the land. The coral reefs, with the amount of fish and the amount of animals that live there, there's nothing else like it. The only thing that comes close is a rainforest. So here is a world view of all the coral reefs around the world. Now, we all know this one here. It's like the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. But what you actually don't see one is that there's actually an amazing one here called the Red Sea. The coral reef there is phenomenal. The lake coral reef. It's really cool. It's so beautiful. But as you can see here, right, you have, there's Vietnam. Vietnam is coral reefs by Phu Quoc. These are all the places in which coral reefs grow, right? You've got the Caribbean Sea, there's lots there. Hawaii, you get lots of coral reefs around Hawaii. Even where I'm from, you get these cold coral reefs. They're kind of more like forests. Remember the way we said rainforest, right? Now, let's just draw the map of this, okay? Because it's an interesting point, okay? So we have the equator. The equator is like here-ish, okay? And in around the equator, you get warm, okay? Hot, warm, okay? And we said we get the rainforests. Rainforests are like here and in Australia here, and you get Bali and all these places where you get warm rainforest, Papua New Guinea and stuff. As you get colder, you get colder forests as well, right? So think about forest up here in Canada and in Russia and all these places, in North America, and even down here in Argentina, you get like cold deciduous rainforests. Even in like Tasmania and New Zealand, down there, you got cold rainforest. And look at the way the animal growth is, or even the coral growth is. Still getting cold water coral reefs. The same as you get cold water forests. Here you get rainforests. Here you get cold forests as well. They work together hand in hand. So don't get confused by the temperature alone, because they can grow in very many different places. And the reason they grow in many different places is they adapt. They say, okay, well, hold on. I'm a coral reef, but it's not that warm. I'm going to adapt. They can still get sunlight. They can still make food. They just approach things differently. Same with the oceans. The Atlantic Ocean, not that hot. Pacific Ocean, kind of hot. Southern Ocean, freezing. Arctic Ocean, freezing. Main difference between these two is there is more fresh water here and here than there is in here, 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 and here, because of the ice caps. So these waters are not as salty. Okay? More animals can actually live in these, and they can live in these because it's less salty as well. Okay? Right, let's move on. I've got to quickly go through something else before we do this. So cover yeah, okay. So here I drew up something for you to try and compare coral reefs and rainforests, because they're kind of the same, okay? In the sense that look at their abiotic factors, so the non-living things that can affect it. There's rain all year, lots of sunlight, there's warm temperatures. In coral reefs, under the sea, sunlight, warm, ocean currents as well. Aquatic life, so things that are living. There's lots of animal life. 50% of all animals live here, lots of trees. For a coral reef, there's many animals. 25% of all animal life and lots of coral, right? Lots of trees. Anything else? Many trees can cause crowding. Many coral which can cause crowding. There's a lot of similarities between the two there, right? If you were to think about, okay, well, how can you compare and contrast rainforests to coral reefs? What you need to do is break it down by looking at what the abiotic and biotic factors are, okay? Figuring out what is actually making this do this, and why is it doing that. You can give me an example of how crowding in a rainforest can affect life. Think about all those trees in the canopy layer. How does that affect the rest of the rainforest? The canopy layer is so thick that it stops sunlight from getting to the forest floor, okay? So when you have an ecosystem like the rainforest that has many layers, many different ecosystems, one affects the other, okay? This is very similar to coral reefs. What happens is you get so many coral growing, there isn't that much space to grow, okay? What has to happen is the coral needs to grow somewhere else, and it ends up making the coral reefs bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, sometimes you can't always do this, sometimes you can, but this type of crowding and this type of expansion can cause issues with the coral, okay? So again, we have lots of coral, it can cause lots of crowding. It can affect the ecosystem. It can change the habitats of the fish. It gives fish extra places to hide. It also encourages more fish to come. So it's growing, it's building. And that's the way coral reefs and rainforests are very similar, okay? Here is a list of all the things. When you look between them, there's so many similarities between what a rainforest and a coral reef is. And you'd never think that a rainforest on land and a coral reef under the sea could be so similar. There are only slight differences in terms of where they are, okay? So even still, you don't need lots of water. All right, okay, so for your homework, what I want you to do is choose an animal from a coral reef, draw it and write about its adaptations. Please follow this picture, okay? Thank you all. Bye. I love you. Bye bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.